Hey there, I have kind of a dry subject for you on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to attack the subject of listening and just give you some of the elements and different things about it that you should probably know. First of all, listening occurs there's two climates. We call them listening climates. And one of them is relational. And when you're in a relational climate, you feel like you're being heard. You feel like what you say matters. You feel like you're being supported, not being judged. And it's comfortable and it's safe. Now, when you're in a defensive climate, it's the opposite. You don't feel comfortable. You feel like you're being evaluated or judged. There's tension in the air and it's uncomfortable. So obviously, we listen better when we're in a relational kind of climate. All right. Um, Four quick elements of listening. I call them hour, HAUR, happy hour. If you can have a happy hour wherever you are, whatever happiness is. Um, the H is basically, you probably figured it out. It's hearing. Okay. And then you have A, which is attending, which hopefully you're doing right now when you watch me. U is understanding, which hopefully means I'm making sense to you. And R is responding, which would be really weird this way. But if I were live, then you'd respond with maybe a nod or a question or something, just to acknowledge the fact that you've been listening to what I've been saying. Now, here's the kind of little psychology part about how we listen. There's something called internal barriers, and these get in the way of us being able to be in the moment and to listen to somebody else. The first of these is emotional noise. And with that, basically, your mind is kind of cluttered with emotion from something perhaps going on in your life or that just happened or whatever it might be. And it kind of fogs up your thinking, and it fogs up your ability to listen because your brain is consumed with that. So somebody may be talking to you, but you're not there. Okay, you've kind of tuned out. That's emotional noise. Some people are able to compartmentalize, which means that they're able to kind of keep the noise outside, why I have to be here at work or why I have to be in class or why I'm with my significant other, whatever. They're telling you something important. You kind of take whatever it is and you move it away. But not everybody is proficient at that. Okay. Second, we have is cognitive distractions. And perhaps you're dealing with that as you watch me, because I tend to move my head around a lot, and maybe you're noticing some of the weird things I have going on around here, which might get in the way of your ability to listen. Yeah, that is an eyeball, okay, and that's a leg. So what happens is you get distracted by that, and so you stop listening because now you're thinking about something else. All right, so and that could be both visual. All right. And it also could be something somebody says, because if you think about it, our mind is spinning. So somebody's talking to you about something and it reminds you of, oops, did I turn off the oven? Okay. And now you're thinking about that and you're thinking about, should I drive home? All right. That's a cognitive distraction, because while you're thinking that, they still keep on talking. All right. Which means that you're no longer really listening to what they have to say. And the last one is premature judgment. And that is when we kind of presume we know what somebody's going to say, and we kind of fill our mind with a response, yet we don't even know really what they're saying. And what's happening is you have this judgment beforehand going in your head, and they're talking to you, and you're not really listening to them because you are hearing what you think they're going to say. So those are internal barriers, okay? Then we have external barriers, and the most common one is noise, and that can be obviously visual too, okay? If you're looking at a lot of stuff, in front of you, it may be hard to listen if you're in a crowded place. And obviously it's auditory too. If you're in a loud place, it's obviously going to be hard to listen to somebody. So we had road construction going on Friday. If I was doing this right now and we had that going on, even with the windows up, you still might have a hard time hearing me, and you might get a little bit frustrated and not being able to listen. Okay. The next part I want to talk about are, one last one is two last ones. Information overload is another well, I'm not doing well today. Is another internal barrier. External barrier. You're catching me live, messing up. And basically, that's when you get too much information over a short period of time. All right. Those of you who have taken back-to-back classes before, you know what I'm talking about, because your brain gets overloaded and you suddenly can't listen anymore. It's not that you're not a good listener, it's just that your brain is packed. So it kind of turns off and you get edgy and antsy, and sometimes you start to yawn, okay? Because our brain is full. It's at capacity, okay? No more room at that table. And then the last one is information complexity or message complexity. And that's where what you're being told is too complicated to understand. It may be something that's very intricate, and so you have a hard time grasping the message, and that can create a barrier to listening because for whatever reason, you're not grabbing it. You're not getting it because it's just got a little too many nooks and crannies, and it's hard for you to follow. Okay. Now I want to talk quickly about counterfeit listening, and this is listening, of course, that is not good. The first one is pseudo-listening, which is kind of half listening. You've seen this all the time when somebody is listening to you, but then they're also looking down at their cell phone or looking out the window when you're talking, or they have the TV on while you're talking and then saying, oh, I can listen. No, they can't. All right. We're not really able to do that, even though we think we can. We're just not wired that way. So, it's kind of listening kinda, but not really, and that can be almost more frustrating than not being heard at all because it kind of tunes in and out. All right, the next one is stage hogging, and this is the one where you have somebody who is basically using you as an opportunity to tell their story. Okay, you talk about something and they interrupt you and they go on their own about themselves, which means that they're not really listening to you, they're really listening to them because they have to kind of be the center of attention. So there seems to be like this, I wouldn't say it's like a ping pong or anything, but you talk about something, tell a story or whatever it might be, and the attention always goes back to them. Then we have selective listening, and that's where you kind of hear little pieces of the message, but not all of it, only those that maybe have relevance to you. So if I were to say we have a major quiz on Friday, that might get your attention, whereas nothing I've said up till now makes a difference at all. We hear oftentimes what we want to hear, and in selective listening, that's kind of what you're doing. Then we have defensive listening, and that's listening defensively. All right, meaning that you already have a mood about it, or your state of mind right now is defensive. So you kind of listen with your arms crossed, or you listen with your eyes rolling because for whatever reason, you're not taking in what's being said to you with an open mind. You've already kind of have your opinion about it, but also you have an edge about it, so it makes it kind of tense. All right. Now, I want to talk about active listening. And that's the most authentic kind of listening we have. That doesn't involve any of those barriers or not the barriers, but any of those counterfeit listening styles I mentioned a minute ago. With active listening, you are thoroughly involved. You are invested, and you make the person feel like you're invested. And here are some techniques that often are used, and one is paraphrasing, which basically just shows you know what they're talking about. So every once in a while, you kind of paraphrase what they said. Paraphrase sounds good. Paraphrase what they said, and so that in your own words, so that we're on the same page. Questioning is always good because it shows interest. If somebody talks to you long enough and all you're doing is nodding your head, and they don't ask questions, sometimes you wonder if they care at all. So questioning is kind of important. Analyzing, which basically means that you show somebody a different way to look at something. So they're talking to you about something and they kind of have only one, let's say, a viewpoint about it, or one way, especially if there's a problem they're talking about, they only see one way. And when you analyze, it's like you kind of throw out another idea because maybe they are not seeing things three-dimensionally. That shows that you are active listening. Listening with empathy, which means putting yourself where they are. You're not in your shoes, you're in their shoes. So if somebody's telling you about a personal situation, it's just understanding and feeling for them. It's not sympathy. Save that for Hallmark, okay? This is about empathy. It's about feeling where somebody is coming from. Then we have silence, which actually can be a good thing, especially if it's a deep conversation you're having and somebody is talking about something, because sometimes when you talk about it, you hear it for the first time and you have an aha moment of your own and they go silent. That's an invitation to be quiet. You do not have to jump in and try to save anybody, okay? Allow silence. That's really important when you're actively listening. If you're just passively listening, you're going to use up silence to no end because you're going to make it about you probably, or just talk for talk's sake. When you're active listening, this is their moment. If they need to go silent because they're having something register or processing, give them that moment. 2 things to be aware of not to do is advising. I know we want to help sometimes. We feel like we know everything. We want to help folks out, but sometimes folks are venting. Most of the time when somebody's telling you something important to them that's deep, they're venting. They're not looking for you to solve their problem and to fix their broken lock. They just want a warm shoulder, if there is such a thing, that they can lay their head on, or an ear that is available. So don't advise unless they ask for your advice. Or if you ask first if it's okay, can I suggest something? And they say yes, that's fine. But don't just chime in. Okay, that makes folks feel uncomfortable and oftentimes turns your climate into one that's defensive. Okay, and the last one is criticizing or evaluating, and that's basically when you're judging somebody. Okay, when you're judging somebody, they're not going to want you to listen anymore. They're probably going to take their business elsewhere, because I don't think anybody wants to be judged, and it's definitely not a part of active listening. Okay, so that's kind of the listening thing. Obviously, this is a chapter that is much better done live because we do a lot of examples, which I cannot do right now. So I'm giving you kind of the gist of how it works. There's a second section on nonverbal communication, which is part of this, but there's no need for me to go into discussion on that because it's nonverbal. And on the Mirror Project, when you see the prompts, you'll understand what I mean. It's just kind of being aware of what you do that either supports or doesn't support what you're saying, and kind of your body language and that kind of thing. So I'm going to wrap it up a little early. I've went 11 minutes and 30 seconds anyway. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So I'll see you guys in the next couple of days. Take care. Stay dry. Bye.